Hey everyone, this past weekend I attended the American Night Writers Association 2025 conference. The book was better. And isn't it though? I had attended the conference once before for one day years ago before I had attended university to complete my undergraduate degree in English and creative writing and before I had amassed any amount of confidence in my own writing capabilities. This year, I entered their beginning a book contest where I submitted the early pages for Deceivers of ANWA into the competition. I had entered one competition before at Southern New Hampshire University's Fall Fiction Contest, where I submitted a short story called There's No Such Thing as Dragons for consideration. I was really proud of that piece in particular because it was written entirely in dialogue and even though that was the case, the story still had scene descriptions and a character arc for the protagonist. I'd gotten the idea to write in dialogue only from Brandon Sanderson, who did in a piece himself that way. But his piece was humorous. And I think that is what really made it work because it was just funny. You just started laughing from the get-go, and that carried it, and the humor carried the story all the way to the end, making it very effective tool, even though it was written in dialogue only. Whereas my piece involved three characters and was very much an emotional piece about a young girl who was orphaned, didn't have her parents, and was trying to find and figure out her identity. Still, I was very proud of the piece. I did not win, and that's okay. But the disappointing part about that experience was not that I didn't win. It was that I didn't get any feedback from the judges. It just went into the void. You sent it off. Nothing came back. Eventually, you saw posted online elsewhere that somebody else had won, and that was it. But this time I had heard that at the American Night Writers Association ANWA 2025 contest that the judges would give feedback, that you would get results back with their thoughts. And I felt that that was going to be a valuable experience for me. Not only that, I'm required to submit pieces to various contests and publications during my MFA program at SNHU. So this was good practice, and I submitted. I told myself that I was not attaching myself to the outcome, and therefore, when I actually placed second in Adult Speculative Fiction, I was pleasantly surprised. In fact, I was totally surprised. I had a colleague sitting next to me ask me if I was nervous. I said yes, a little, but I don't expect to win. There's so many great writers here. And then when my name was called, it was like, oh, wow, I actually did win. And I almost believe that the reason why I won is because I wasn't attached to the outcome. There's somehow in life, there's this paradoxical relationship between attaching to an outcome and achieving the outcome. The more attached to the outcome you are, the less likely you are to achieve it. The less attached you are, the more likely you are to achieve it. And I've just told myself that for me, I enjoy writing and I'm having fun doing all the different projects that I'm doing. And if I don't go anywhere, if this doesn't take off or nobody likes it, I'm still having a good time doing it. And I feel like that's a good spot to be in. I hope that other writers can be in that spot as well because if you are attached to the outcome, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to, when the rejections come in, it's going to sting. I was reminded of this by the keynote at the conference, Gail Carson Levine, who wrote Ella Enchanted, which was later turned into a movie with Anne Hathaway. Gail, and by the way, she told everyone, not just me, that we were permitted to call her Gail now because we met her at the conference, was disarmingly humble. She told her experience when she wrote Ella Enchanted was that she was told by various editors and agents that her writing was pedestrian. She read a rejection letter that was so toxically poisonous that it was shocking. I couldn't believe as she read it out loud, and this I think has become a badge of honor for her. As she read it out loud, I could not believe that someone out there in the world took the time to actually pen this poisonous note to a person and send it. And then this person received this note and was reading it. And it was so incredibly brutal. And Gail, did she quit after that? No. It took her 10 years to be published. And during that time, she didn't take these rejections as I mean, I suppose they were stumbling blocks in some way, but they didn't stop her. In fact, she went on to educate herself. She took classes on writing, on illustration. She continued working, and eventually, the rest became history. And it was so inspirational to hear her talk. And when her book was turned into a movie and got optioned for a movie, she went on to say how she was meeting with the director at lunch, and the director was saying, I am going to do things with this movie that you're not going to like, and that's just part of the process. And then she also went on to say that I don't know why they had to put a talking snake into the movie, and then that's when I realized that the book was definitely better. But yeah, it was great to hear her story and to remind ourselves that not to attach to the outcome, and that it can take a long time, and that rejection is not reflective of you personally. It's just a moment in time. And I really appreciated that. The other thing I want to mention before I close this out is that I attended another class about building conflict through relationships in your story. It was offered by T.M. Holladay, which is TMHALLADY.com. She's an author and also the creator of a writing app called Novelio, which I'm checking out and seems to be very promising. But her class, it was so deceptively simple. She just walks up and she brings up a PowerPoint and she just puts two names in little rectangular squares across from each other. Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker. Harry Potter, Professor Snape. Elizabeth, Mr. Darcy. And then she just starts clicking through her presentation and drawing these little lines between them. So for Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, you've got all her sisters, you've got her parents, you've got these other characters, the betrayals and the gossip and all the links and the dotted lines and the little squirrelies. It was brilliant. And then she'd finish one. It's all this tangled little web of a picture, and you see how complex the story is. And then she'd finish that and bring up the next one. Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, and then there was Princess Leia and Han Solo and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke's parents and Luke's foster parents and so on and so forth. And then she would finish that one. Then it was Harry Potter, Professor Snape, and it was, Dumbledore and all the other elements. And her point was, does your story have enough lines, triangles, and squares to be complex? And not just complex for the sake of complexity, but complex because that's life, because that's what's interesting to readers. And I walked out of there at first thinking, what is this? Just a little demonstration. At first, I had one impression, and by the time I walked out of there, I was like, wow, this really resonated with me a lot. And I kept thinking about my own story. Does it have enough lines and triangles? Do I have enough lines and triangles? I don't think I do. I'm going to go and draw my own little diagram and add in and then look at ways that I can add some more complexity, because that's life. In any case, that's it for this post. I had a great time at the conference. It was humbling to win something. I had never won something before. I'm not reading too much into that. It's just a moment in time. But I was grateful nonetheless. And in my next post, I will share more tips that I learned from the other classes, because I just shared with you the keynote and the class from TM Holladay. And there is so much more that I have to share. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.